Good afternoon, as opposed to good evening, and welcome to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen's meeting. It is 2 o'clock on Friday, February 8th. My name is Jim Lehan. To my left is my associate, Mr. Calcott. To his left is our interim town administrator, Mr. Lindmark. I want to remind everybody that this meeting is being video and audio taped, may be seen on Norfolk Cable. Would you all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a brief schedule. Doesn't necessarily mean a brief meeting, but a brief schedule, which, having just broken my glasses, I hope I can read. We have a consideration of an appointment to Robert St. John to the Conservation Commission. We have a consideration for an appointment to the Search Committee and any other appropriate actions deemed appropriate for that. Consider voting to add a one-year unexpired planning board position to the ballot on May 7th town election. The position will be available due to the resignation that will be effective April 30th. Because of the future date of the resignation, a vote of the Selectmen is required to add that position to the ballot. And then just briefly, just some discussion items, if anything that the board may have had that has happened recently, and of course the unexpected resignation of our fire chief will be a point of discussion. So, first order of business, Mr. Robert St. John to the Conservation Commission. Are you ready, partner?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I should mention, by the way, I apologize. As you may note, there are only two of us here. And that will be the case between now and the May 7th election. Mr. Palumbo has submitted his resignation effective Monday or Tuesday. I was away all week, so I don't remember. Do you remember which day it was?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, effective Tuesday. He is no longer on the board. His reasons for resigning are personal and his to discuss. Speaking personally, having served on the board with Jeff for almost 6 years, I will miss him. He's been a great contributor. He is a man that cares only for the town. Has never had a self-serving moment on this board. While we agree or disagree with decisions people may make up here sitting behind this table, I can't think actually of a selectman that I've had the pleasure of working with that has not done what he believes, he or she has not done what they believe to serve the best interest of the town. One is sitting right here, Mr. Jonathan Smith. And I would certainly say that about my friend and associate, Mr. Palumbo. So I wish him the very best in his new direction, whatever that may be. And speaking personally, I will miss Jeff. He has served you well, more than probably, he doesn't do it to get credit, but I will say it more than he'll ever get credit for. He's been a good selectman. So it is now up to you and I, sir. And whoever is calling to get that vote. It's a call-in vote. Just in terms of protocol, one might ask, what does one do with a two-man board? It means that we must agree on any vote because it requires a quorum of two. There will be two positions now as a result of Mr. Palumbo's resignation on the ballot, a 3-year term and a 1-year term. You want to speak to the 1-year term that you're resigning? I mean, that's also the case. That's on the agenda this evening.
Simply put, I've been working with 2 boards at one time for the last year, and given the upcoming transitions that we have with our town administrator role and potential transitions with other boards in town, I thought it was a good time to be able to allow somebody else in town to maybe fill that role and dedicate a little bit more attention to it, whereas I've been kind of split over the course of the last year. So I look forward to turning my attention solely onto this board, and look forward to the opportunity for somebody else to get involved with the planning board.
And as a citizen, I would thank you for your 2 years of service on the board. It's not easy to serve on 2 boards that take up a significant amount of time, as both boards do, so thank you for that.
Very welcome.
Okay, Mr. St. John. First, I want to thank Mr. St. John for stepping forward. It is very difficult to find individuals who are willing to serve on boards in this day and age, and conservation is probably one of the toughest. Mm-hmm. That is a very difficult board to serve on. And Mr. St. John has stepped forward. He does have some a very interesting background. I know he's had some background. The one, I have no reservation about his qualifications and appreciate his stepping forward. We have a glaring need on the Conservation Board. We are short on members, and one of our members, in fact, the chair, has had some medical issues and had difficulty in attending meetings. So they are at a point where they're having a difficult time even getting a quorum to hear these boards. The one, I won't call it a concern, but the one thing I think we need to be aware of is that Mr. St. John is a Lake Street resident. There have been some conservation issues, not have been, there still are, a number of conservation issues associated with Lake Street, and specifically some right in the area where he lives. And if we are in agreement that we would appoint him to this board, I would require that he not be able to participate in any hearings associated with Lake Street, which would still put them in a position of potentially being lacking a quorum. So it's a bit of a dilemma in that we have a good candidate that can't fulfill all of the hearing requirements associated with that board. And I know Lake Street is going to be before that board very shortly. So I'm not quite sure where to go with this. I do certainly appreciate him coming forward and certainly appreciate his qualifications. But it's hard when you have someone that you have to recuse right out the door from issues that will be before that board in a very short manner. Your thoughts, sir?
I mean, I try to align it to the way that we would look at any board in town. If somebody has a contentious item in front of that board that doesn't really have a near end in sight, you would want to be able to avoid that situation at all costs, especially in this situation where one of the main focuses for being able to put somebody onto the Concom is to be able to give them a quorum. We would not be doing that for this specific instance in this action. Now, clearly, we don't have a flurry of applicants coming in looking to be appointed.
We could be so lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree. It is a tough position. I think all things considered, we would want to avoid situations like this whenever making appointments to committees that provide direction on certain aspects of what we're going through. But this is unique in nature.
Well, the Lake Street is a sensitive topic
Right.
to a lot of folks. And I'm sure it is to any resident on Lake Street. In fact, I know it is to any resident on Lake Street. And I know that it is going to go through a rather extensive review with the Conservation Board pretty much any time now. Because it needs to get done in the spring so that whatever comes out of that process can be done in the summer months or as soon as the weather breaks, which really should be within the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little between a rock and a hard spot, and I think you're in the same place. I certainly appreciate Mr. St. John stepping forward, and I absolutely applaud his credentials, but I'm a little, putting someone on just to create a quorum is not a good reason.
Yeah.
And knowing the sensitivity of Lake Street and the extent to which it will be before the Conservation Board, which is quite a bit, I'm not sure where to go with this. It is no reflection to Mr. St. John. I'm not suggesting he wouldn't be fair. That's not my point. But you can't participate in something in which you have a vested interest, and any resident on that road has a vested interest. So it's not exclusive to him. It's any resident on Lake Street. So I'm really not sure where to go with this. I'm reluctant to make the appointment just to fill a seat to be able to have a hearing on Wednesday. I don't think that's a good reason to do it.
Yeah.
I would suggest that maybe we bring Mr. St. John in at our next meeting and talk with him about it, openly and honestly about how he feels about being in a position of not being able to participate in one of the major issues that's going to be before the commission.
I think that's a great idea.
Good idea?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll defer this and ask him to come into the meeting on Monday. I know that makes it awkward for the board on Wednesday, but we can't just fill positions for the sake of a quorum.
Yeah.
Deal? Deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is that we have had someone reach out to participate in the search committee. Kevin brought it forward. I know the individual. I think the world of her. I think she's a terrific person. I've had dealings with her or have worked with her in some of her charitable efforts and so on. I think she's wonderful. And when you first brought this up, I was enthusiastic to that. But I've had some time to think it through, and it has nothing to do with the applicant. I think the applicant is a great applicant. But I look at it from a practical point of view. We have not gone out. Let me back up. We established a search committee 2.5 months ago, I think, pretty close, back in November. We solicited for volunteers. We were fortunate to get Mrs. Kelly, who, as some of you don't know, is chair, I believe, of the finance, or is the financial, I think she's the finance director in the town of Weston, or certainly in that department in the town of Weston. So she has a good base knowledge of what town government is like and what have you. So we were fortunate to find a volunteer that had some background in that. My experience in recruiting, both knowing other communities here in Norfolk, but also in the corporate world, when you interview for senior management positions, you need folks that have an understanding of the requirements of that job. I think you would agree with that. I know we talked about that. Mm-hmm. If you asked me to interview people for a senior management position in a chemical business of some type, I'd be ill-equipped to do that because I don't know a darn thing about that business. So I would be hard-pressed to find some logical, intellectual way to measure whether a person has the skill sets to do that job or not as it relates to that business. I think that's very true about town government too, and that's why I think we all agreed on that, all three of us, that we wanted to go in a direction that we've had folks that had some knowledge of what skill sets they would be looking for in a good town administrator. And I think we made that decision. We did add Ingrid. Ingrid would have been the person we would have had on the committee. I would hope, I certainly would have recommended her had she been in a position to participate, but she was on a 30-day medical leave and couldn't participate. But she manages the largest department in town. Our schools are the largest department. She's also had experience not only with our town administrator, but she had it in the town of Foxborough before she came here. So she has a very strong knowledge base on that. In talking with a consultant, he led me to understand that the process is that they will not be re-interviewing people they have already interviewed. So putting someone that has no sort of close knowledge to how a town administrator works, regardless of who that is, and asking them to participate in a process that on a committee that was formed 2.5 months ago, now going in, hopefully, of course I said that last time, hopefully to the home stretch, I don't think that's a good decision, personally. And again, it has nothing to do with the candidate. I think we made good choices on that committee. I would add that I've read some of the, I had not until while I was traveling this week, out of boredom, I went on and checked some of the Facebook communications. Some of them are not very fair to the committee, to be honest. Statements are made that they're presenting as facts that are just not facts. They're wrong, blatantly wrong. And these people, with the exception of the chief of police, live in this town. These people have all participated in town government, and they've volunteered their time and their talent to help us through this. And I think challenging them is ill-advised. And I think adding people from the outside to that committee, for me right now, I can't do that. I'm not comfortable. I see no logic to doing that. And it has nothing to do, I wish this person had applied earlier, back when we started the process. I think she could have been a very good choice. Certainly one we should have considered, because I know her, and she's a great individual. But this has nothing to do with the individual. This is just basically process. This person would come in without having any knowledge of the, I think they interviewed 8 people. I may be wrong on that, but I think it was 8 people. She'd have no knowledge of that. She wouldn't have any way of judging those people as candidates. And not having any experience around the board itself, certainly has town experience, but not in terms of town government or town administrator. I just don't see the benefit of it, and we haven't solicited other members. Where do we stop? You know, if someone else sends in an email and says, I want to join the committee, how do you say yes to one and no to another? I struggle with that. And I don't know that anyone else has. But I just don't see the fairness in that. Had we gone out, and we have not gone out and solicited more members of this committee, this is someone that has just come forward, I don't think, I have difficulty doing that. So I'll turn it to you now.
I agree with much of what you're saying. The one thing where I think we part ways a little bit is in that her experience set not being directly tied into town government or municipal departments or things of that nature would be a hindrance to her ability to contribute to the process. I think that she'd still be able to contribute to the process, and I think that there is some value in having somebody who's not directly tied into all of those functions be able to give a different perspective to some of the conversation or line of questioning that's going on during those things. I'm not saying to fill the committee with an entire group of residents who have no experience. We have a number of people on there who have an incredible past with the town and in their professional lives to be able to offer that kind of expertise. I thought that having another point of view, another perspective, could only be a benefit to the direction of those conversations and to the outcomes. Additionally, I know that we didn't solicit for additional applicants or put anything out there for more people to apply. But we were presented with a situation in which we did put Ingrid onto the committee, which now gave us an even number of members. In the event that a vote needed to be taken to be able to push an applicant on, there was the potential for that to come into a stalemate vote where it was even across the board. Now, I know that you had been talking with our recently submitted fire chief about his plans for moving forward with the committee. Do we have the direction on where we're going with that as of today?
I had lunch with him just before this meeting, and he would like to stay on the committee.
Okay.
And I think he should. I wouldn't disagree with you that outside process could add. I wouldn't disagree with you at all. I think that that's very true. I still am struggling with two basic components. One, this should have been done 2.5 months ago. It should have been, if we were going to make this move, we should have done it as part of the original committee, and bringing someone in the back, sort of the back nine, if you will, in the process, having not openly solicited other candidates, to me is not right. It's more of a process thing with me. It's not that they can't bring benefit to it, because I agree with you. I think anybody that comes in with a fair and open mind, and I believe Jen would be able to contribute just out of common sense and things of that nature. So I'm not discounting what you say there at all. I just don't see. First, I don't see the need. I'm not. You and I are not on the same page on that, I guess, and that's okay. But I don't think that we can, I don't want to be in a position of picking and choosing and just arbitrarily adding people to this board, which is really what this is. And I grant Ingrid is sort of a late comer in that process. But Ingrid is, to me, a very different set of circumstances. Ingrid would have been a benefit from day one if we could have gotten her. But unfortunately, she wasn't available to do that. And I think any department head who manages 1/4 of our budget, and our largest department, and the most employees, I might add, and has worked with not only town administrators here in Norfolk, but another town, can only add benefit to that board. And that, to me, brings in that sort of fresh perspective. She hasn't been part of any of that. So from my perspective, we've accomplished that. When you start bringing in volunteers, it's a different perspective to me. And what do you say if you get an email tomorrow from someone else that says they want to come in? Do we say yes?
Well, I would say no, because then we would have our odd number of people on the board, and which you set for the moment.
So your reason is odd and even? Is that the basic?
One of them.
Okay.
I believe that if we would have got this application before we appointed Ingrid, I think our response would have been, I'm very sorry, but this process has been completed at this point. We have our full committee, we have the number of people we're looking for, and we're moving forward with what we have. But given the fact that we just introduced Ingrid to the board, and then we did have an even number of people, I think it added another perspective to the potential of adding another member.
Well, I can understand that. The even number doesn't disturb me because, frankly, if we have a 5-4 vote, that's not a good decision anyway, or a 4-4 vote, or however you want to look at it. That's a no vote in my book anyway. I mean, I would hope that candidates that are brought forward have at least the overwhelming majority of that committee. I would hope. Don't know, but I would hope. But it may not be the case. We have no idea. I don't sit in on the meetings, nor do you. So neither of us know that. Well, I mean, if you think, and I will honor this, if you think having the 7 or an odd number is the critical component to that, then I could talk with Ingrid and ask if she would, she would not go on, because I cannot see my way to adding another volunteer to this that was not part of the original process. I just don't think that's right, because we didn't ask anyone else if they wanted to be. We did. We opened that up to anyone. We had multiple meetings where we made it available to people. I think we only got that one applicant that I remember. Mm-hmm. I don't remember another person coming forward. So now, 2.5 months later, especially after the train of communications, frankly, that I've seen on Facebook, which has been somewhat critical unfairly, in my opinion, of that committee. And I think that I read down that's what facilitated that application. It's clearly defined under Facebook. And that, we're not going to appoint town administrator on Facebook. And so I'm concerned about that.
I don't want to speculate as to the intent or direction of conversation.
I know
on
Jen.
Facebook
Jen
and
isn't. You
her
don't know her.
motives.
I know her. She's
Right.
not motivated for any alternative reasons. Don't
Right.
misunderstand. This is not about the person.
Yep.
Absolutely not. I would not challenge or question that at all. She's
Yep.
a great individual that's contributed a lot of wonderful things to this community. I wish she had applied 2.5 months ago. I would have welcomed that. I think she would have been a great candidate. But I can't move past that issue. I just don't think we could be taking in volunteers. If you feel strong enough, and I would honor that if you do, then I'll talk to Ingrid and, explain that. I don't have a problem in doing that. And I know Ingrid would understand.
The number on the board isn't the critical component to me. I don't want to lose the extremely beneficial feedback and benefit that Ingrid could introduce to the committee just for getting numbers correct. It was just one of the aspects that presented the opportunity, that's all.
Okay.
That being said, even at the stage we are in the process, I do believe that Jennifer would be able to add rather than bring detriment to the direction of those conversations, and I would still support her appointment to the board. That being said, it sounds like we are
We are in the
introduced with our first complexity of a two-man board.
That we are. But I want to make just a quick point. I agree with you. I believe Jennifer would provide. And I don't want to leave any impression that I don't. This is not about Jennifer.
Yep.
I want to make that very clear. I know her. She's a friend. Not that being a friend has anything to do with it. But I've worked with her. She's done tremendous work with the Fisher Organization and the Lions. And I mean, she is a wonderful, wonderful person. Very capable of contributing. That is not the issue for me. I wish she had applied 2.5 months ago. I just am uncomfortable, and I think you're right. I think we're in that logjam. I think we'll probably have to respectfully disagree with each other on this one.
Agreed to disagree.
Agree to disagree. This now, by the way, for those at home, is our blessing from this point forward, because it is a two-man board. We must agree for it to be a vote.
Correct.
We'll have to talk with Jeff about this. All right, well, we are an impasse on that one. This next one really is, Carol briefly explained this, but I guess we have to do something. Did she explain to you why we have to make this vote?
She did briefly, hold on.
Okay, I'll rely on you then to explain it to those at home.
So, whereas Mr. Palumbo resigned from the board immediately, my resignation to the planning board was done in the future, so I'd be able to participate up until the election. And I believe that for us to be able to add the one-year term to the upcoming election, while I'm still on the board and my resignation isn't final or isn't immediate, the Board of Selectmen needs to vote to place that one-year term on the ballot.
Would that, and I'm asking you, you may not know, would that have been true for, say, let's say Mr. Palumbo had resigned May 7th, but turned it in prior to papers being available for candidates?
I can't say definitively, but seeing as how
curious,
that would be the exact same situation as me with the planning board.
I guess I never asked the question, but
Yep.
I thought that was the way the process worked, that the resignation had to be, doesn't matter.
Right.
If she says we have to do this, we have to do.
Yeah.
But I was under a different, I think, under the same impression you were. That if you've got your papers in stating your resignation or intent to resign on election day, for all intents and purposes, that's what worked. And it made the position available for the ballot and not require a special election. But I guess I'm wrong. Won't be the first.
And I know that, she gave some initial direction, then she went to go check on it, and she was very thorough in the process of being able to outline exactly what is required, so.
By the way, I know Jen, and I don't want to put you on the hook for that. I'm the one that has prevented that appointment at this point. I will be glad to send her a note and explain it to her or give her a call.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, that either way is fine for me.
Okay, well, I mean, it's, because I honestly, I'm saying it again, but this has nothing to do with her.
Understood.
Absolutely nothing to do with her. I think she's terrific. Okay, so you want to make this motion?
feels kind of odd, but sure.
Well, I'll make it. I'll make it. No, I'll make it.
I meant more in nature rather than...
You're not named, so it's okay. If you'd like to put your name in there, feel free.
All right, so I move to add a 1-year unexpired planning board position to the ballot for the May 7th town election.
I will second. Any further discussion? You sure?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The only other item I had was it was about the fire chief situation. Unless you knew something I didn't know, and I don't think you did, based on your expression as much as mine. I knew Cole was considering retirement in the near future. I didn't think near meant Monday. His resignation is effective, I believe, June 30th, end of the fiscal year. We have a lot on our plate right now, and who knows what's going to happen May 7th? Who knows who the town administrator is going to be? You could have an entirely new cast of characters, so to speak. That it now becomes their challenge. I'm just kicking ideas around here with you. I know the fire department well. Cole has done a good job of brainwashing me in the appropriate way as to what they do and how they work. We have a deputy chief that is a very talented man. Peter Petrusik is just a terrific firefighter, terrific second in command. He's done a great job. He does the budgets. He is a very good deputy chief. I have not talked to Peter, but it is theoretically possible that certainly Peter would be, I did talk with Cole about it, and he concurs that Peter would very much be in a position to take over that position either as an interim or however we chose to define it. And now Peter is only, I believe Peter's age is such that he is probably within 3 or 4 years of retirement. And not a question that because that would involve deliberation, and it's not but I'm just giving information, and we can put it on the agenda to talk at another time.
Sure.
It does give us, we're fortunate in that we have a second in command that is extreme, not that we don't in other areas, but in the fire department especially necessary, because it's such a unique business that we have someone there that can step into that role and keep things as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I'd like to put on as a topic of discussion with your permission, and I won't do it unless we're in agreement. I'd like to talk with Peter about how he feels about that and what role he thinks might be suitable. If he'd prefer that we bring Peter in and talk about it as a board, that's okay too. There's no hidden agenda here or anything at all. As I said, I have intentionally not talked to Peter until I had a chance to visit with you on this. My lunch with Cole today was more, how could you surprise me like that? He said he actually got a great deal of pleasure out of that.
Yeah, I imagine.
With a smile.
I imagine.
With a smile. So what do you think? I mean, I know Peter pretty well from the training that they have given me over the years. Very capable man. Very capable man. Well regarded, well respected by the firefighters. I can't say a thing that wouldn't be superlative about Peter. He may not want to take on that role.
Right.
And so that's why I thought if you're agreeable, I could at least visit with him about what options he sees. He certainly, I think, would be willing to take it on. Cole said that he would be willing to step in whatever capacity we felt required. Well, that's between he and Cole.
Correct.
Our conversation would be different.
Yep.
And I might get a different answer.
I mean, I believe this is the logical next step.
That's what I think too. But I did not want to pursue it without your agreement.
I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
I agree. It's
Okay.
the logical next step.
And I'll get a hold of him on Monday and feel him out. We'll put it on the agenda for next Tuesday, the 18th. Not necessarily, well, I don't know that we want to put it on as an action item at this point because Cole's not gone yet.
Right.
We have time.
Yep.
But at least it buys us the time to think through a strategy. I can think of a number of different options. Peter could serve until such time as a new one were appointed. Peter could serve for the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, there are all kinds of ways this could, and I'm not promoting one answer to this. I'm just saying we're fortunate in that he provides us some alternative planning
Absolutely.
that we should really explore because he's a talent that we have there. And he's been a terrific player for the town. He loves the town. I'm sure Peter would say he'd do whatever he can to help. I'm pretty confident in that. That's Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will call him on Monday and find a time and we'll chat. And I'll put it on the agenda for a discussion item on Tuesday.
Very good.
That's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Todd, you joined us, so you were the minute taker. You got 3 pages.
That's all I have right now.
How's your first couple of days gone?
Great.
For those at home, Todd, I think I mentioned at the beginning, is our interim town administrator because everybody got tired of working with the selectmen. Wise decision.
No problems.
Good. Good. Well, we appreciate your stepping in that role.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
No feedback on it at all? You're good to go, huh?
I don't have any problems.
That's a good sign. You don't have any problems. Did you take the week off?
Nope. I'm here even today.
Chief, rarely do we get you in the audience. Did you have anything you wanted to?
I wanted to hear what you guys had to say. What discussions?
Jonathan, how about you, sir?
Just here.
Here to visit, huh?
Yeah, Joanne said, go to the meeting, so.
Wow. Your wife wanted you out of the house, huh? Oh, okay.
The boss speaks.
If I could, just one more thing.
Sure.
This is our first week of operating with our new 34 permit parking spaces along Liberty Lane. It was a joy to drive up there on Monday or Tuesday and see them completely filled out. I think it's a great benefit to the residents who were lucky enough to be selected in our lottery. I know there were some who weren't, and I hope everybody looks forward to reapplying again in the fall. We'll be doing an aligned lottery once again for the full annual permit spots, both at Old Town Hall and at Liberty Lane. So we hope everybody reapplies if you didn't get selected then, and we do hope the people who have those spots enjoy them.
This was your idea, and I think it's a great idea. Thank you for bringing it forward, and I've heard a number of people commented too. It's nice when you have positions that the lottery actually needs a lottery. That's unusual.
Yeah, we had 34 spots and about 60 applicants, so.
Oh, wow.
No.
Now, were some of those applicants, just out of curiosity, people that were down at the Old Town Hall too?
There was a few. There was a few.
Well, it's closer.
Yep.
It's closer. A little pricier, but closer. It's worth the difference.
Absolutely.
I can do this now, or if you prefer, I was actually thinking of doing a very brief cable show just to go through and explain to people, because I think one of the comments that I did read on Facebook that I think is very valid is it is very difficult for us, and I noticed someone said this, that it's difficult for us to engage in these conversations. It's hard, and people don't understand that. Well, why don't they respond? Well, there are strict rules, as you and I both know, that as to what we can and cannot. We can't get into deliberation or debate. We can give a fact. We can answer something factually, but we're really very restricted in our ability to engage in debate. And if two of us inadvertently answer questions that sounds like debate in any degree, and we might go in a different direction because we have different opinions, that's not good.
That's very bad.
So this is why we tend to not respond. I noticed you responded one time very appropriately, just giving information. That we can do.
Yep.
But engaging in discussion like people do, and I'm not against Facebook, please. That is a forum for people to discuss. I just wish that fiction doesn't become fact as much as it does on Facebook. And it's not just on this, it's on everything. It's just, well, we all know it's in the public eye today. But it can be a very useful tool to provide information that you have taken the lead on. I'd like to find a way, and I can do it either through a cable show, or you and I can collaborate and we can post it somewhere. But what did come out of that debate, while there were certainly some strong opinions, really the ultimate thing is that people really don't know exactly how that process should work and what we did to establish that process. And I'll give an example. One of the comments was, well, why didn't the screening committee do background checks on all the candidates? That's not how it works. You never do that. You don't do that in town government. You don't do that in corporate America. You get a group of people in, you review the process, they interview those people. You have a consultant that does those reference checks to make sure that there's some validity to how they're claimed to be. Then you make a selection, then you do the background check. We contract to an outside firm to do that, and I don't remember how much it is. It's $500 or $600. It's not cheap to do a thorough background check. We do not do that ourselves. We hire someone professionally that does that. This is what happens in corporate America. This happens everywhere. You don't do background checks on 400 resumes. You know, you never do that, because you're not gonna talk to 400 people, 40 people, or what have you. So the process we've followed is the right process, and the screening committee is not at fault in any way, shape, or form for not doing something that is not part of what their responsibility is. That responsibility, in fact, the offer, and I think you made the offer was made contingent on a background check. That is the norm. In any corporate involvement I ever had, that's the norm. That's what you do. You make your offer subject to a background check. And that includes Corey and all of the other things that are part of a normal background check process. So, and it became clear that I think just people that haven't had that experience don't know that. So I don't think it's an unreasonable question to ask. And maybe you can help me figure out how best do we communicate how the process is supposed to work. They don't have to agree with it. I mean, that's freedom of speech, so to speak, but at least let's get the facts out there in some way. And you've been a proponent of that. You know, getting information out in advance of the question is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
So we're 100% on the same page on that. The issue is how do we do it without engaging in a debate? And that's the delicate one. But maybe we could put it on the webpage connection that you've developed through Facebook. I can outline the process. Who puts that on? Do you put that on, or does some?
IT. You forward it to
IT,
IT,
all right,
and IT
so
will put it under, it has to
okay.
go under the what's new section of the website.
Okay.
It's posted there.
You okay if we do that, if I do that?
Absolutely, yeah, that makes sense.
And outline the whole process, how it works, when what gets done, who does it, not by name, but by contract, who does what, and how this process works, what the role of the screening committee is. A lot of towns, as you did some research on it, a lot of towns don't use screening committees.
Yep.
You know, they just, everything goes to the selectmen. Another thing that I noticed in there that there were a lot of questions about, because they don't know, resumes that come into the screening committee are privileged. They are not public information. Reason for that is most of these people are employed. Hopefully all of them are employed, and their bosses may or may not know that they've applied for these jobs. Only when they become finalists, and only those resumes are released. I have not seen a single resume of any other candidate, and I suspect you haven't either. I don't even know who the candidates were, other than hearsay. But that's part of the process. There are privileged points in this process that we don't get a vote on. And people don't know that. You know, say, well, was this person a candidate? Why won't someone tell us? Because we don't know, you know, and if we do, it's because someone whispered it, you know, kind of thing, which may or may not be true. But those resumes are privileged at that point in time, and remain so. The consultant, they all go to the consultant. Consultant shares it with the screening committee, and then the screening committee, upon its completion, turns them all back, including all of their documentation and information and notes and everything they took, all go back to the consultant. I'm gonna take a wild guess that he shreds them, but I don't know that. I know he doesn't give them to me, or to you, or to anybody else. Did I miss anything in that, Chuck? You're on the screening committee.
We didn't keep the resumes either.
Yep.
When we were done.
Yeah, so, but I understand the question, because how would you know? So I'll outline something that explains that, and that might help in some of the dialogue where people at least, again, they don't have to agree with it, but, you know, we do have restrictions on how we go about this, and people do have privacy up to a certain point in the process that we are not free to disclose. And I still think if we did it personally, I think having a screening committee is the right thing to do. I don't think this should have all come directly to us. I hope you share that. Well, you did.
I agree.
'Cause you did.
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree.
I think there needs to be a filter of a good group of people to help through that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it's not easy, and it's always subject to scrutiny. Nothing wrong with that. But those people have worked hard. And I've been on screening committees for superintendents, both at King Philip and at Norfolk. It is not an easy task. It is very difficult to decipher through all of that nonsense, and I say that respectfully, all of the paper, to really try and find the right match. It's very hard. I've done it a lot in my corporate experience, and I've been right sometimes, and I've been wrong sometimes. I don't know anyone that's ever batted 1,000 on that one. So, thank you. I'll write it up. You want me to give it to you to give to Tony? I mean,
Sure.
all right, I'll do that. I'll send it to you.
Thank you. And then also, just to put a little preview out there, as phase 2 of our initiative to be able to enhance community engagement, we're currently working with the town clerk's office and all of the other admins for the individual departmental pages that are out there to come up with a town-wide social media policy that'll really define how those interactions are to work, both from an employee and an elected official standpoint, in addition to looking to a third-party vendor to assist with archiving to help us operate more safely within the guidelines set forth by the state. So moving forward, if things continue to move as they have been, we'd be looking to propose an initiative that would allow us a little bit more flexibility in being able to have those kinds of comments or interactions in those kinds of forums.
So my Cliff Noted version of what you just said is that you think there's a way that we could legally engage without crossing the lines of debate.
There are.
That would be a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's been a long-standing, there's one individual that we both know that has been a crusader of that for a long time, and rightfully so. The intent is well intended. The intent is well intended. His mission is in the right direction. The problem is the boundaries.
Yep.
And people just don't understand those boundaries. So if you can find a way to do it, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Good. That would be a good thing. Yeah. It's been, when we don't have a local newspaper like we used to. You weren't here then, but some of us remember the Boomerang, which was exclusively our little newspaper. It was unfortunately manipulated for the wrong reasons on occasion, but it was well intended.
Yep.
But it was newsy, if you will. It was a way for people to get information out. Unfortunately, it started to become utilized for the wrong reasons.
Right.
But we don't have that anymore. And the community paper that we get between Rentham and Norfolk really doesn't serve that purpose.
Right.
That's more of a goodwill kind of process. And that's good. We need goodwill. I'm all for goodwill. So, okay, that's good news. Do you think that's something that can be implemented soon?
We hope to have it ready for a presentation at town meeting.
That would be exciting. Oh, I did have one other item, sorry. I met with some folks this morning that are putting together a sort of an anniversary function for the town of Norfolk in 2020. They're excited about it. And it's called more of a time travel. And they would like to, they're excited, and I think for all the reasons, and they've touched a lot of people in town that have been around for it, and there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm for this, and so we kicked around different ways and ideas on how to do this. And it would be self-subsidized, if you will, because it would involve a dinner and a nice video show, and this was done many, many years ago. It was hysterical, dressing up as old characters of the town government, and I mean, they've already pegged me for one, which I'll do anything, the heck with it, but it'll be memorable, at least not for me. But it's a wonderful idea, and they've involved a lot of folks that have a long history in town. Apparently they've touched base with people like Frank Gross, a name that you may remember, you may not. He's been gone for a number of years, but he was chair of the school committee for 21 years, and I think moderator since the earth cooled. Wonderful sense of humor. His meetings were hysterical. So it's something they're really going to work towards. They will need a little seed money for advertising and promoting and doing things of that nature, probably no more than a couple of $1,000 to help them get going, and are hoping that the town would subsidize that. If that were the case, we'd have to either put that on as a warrant article, put it on in May of this year, or certainly November of next year, but they want to get started before that.
Yeah.
The function itself will be self-sufficient. They've made arrangements for a nice dinner. They're going to have it catered. They know what the price of that is. They'll have tickets. They'll charge tickets. All of that's been worked through. But they would need some subsidy of a couple of $1,000. I personally would be very supportive of that. I want to know how you felt about that.
That sounds fantastic to me as well.
Good.
Dependent on the number. I mean,
2,000.
Yeah.
2,000,
okay.
not 20. There's only 3 zeros, not 4.
Right.
Yeah. It's more for getting some advertisement out, printing the tickets, doing things of that nature. Otherwise we'd all have to chip in and get it done.
No,
So
absolutely supportive.
but it sounds like it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, should be an interesting evening. All right, thank you. We'll if you will put that in the minutes, sir,
Right down.
we'll add that as a warrant article, and we'll figure out the wording of it. One more $2,000 in your budget.
There we go.
I'll find it if you don't.
It's already there.
Okay, but I know you will. That's it. Anything else? Oh, I had those for you. Yeah, if you want to hand them out, I have more. Matt's given me a lifetime supply. If everybody
nice.
shows up, we will have 8,312 people at that day.
Beautiful.
And if you have not been down, go.
I haven't been down in a month and a half, so
Oh,
it
you
probably
gotta
has made
go.
monumental changes and advancements
You
since
have,
then.
you have got to go. I'll forward you an email from the builder He sends us one every week that shows pictures of all of the things that have been done that week. It's very impressive. You've got a nice station down there, Chief.
I know we do.
Yeah. But, no offense, but upstairs is even more impressive. I mean, that's what $4 million a computer here will do for you. But if you get a chance, you ought to get out and take a
Yeah,
look.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's worth it. That's it for me.
Good in mind as well.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you for that debate.
Thank